and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at BTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two important topics. The first is in reference to the political situation in the country, where we have seen some sort of clarity coming out from the PTI side regarding the decision of the dissolution of assemblies in KP and Sindh that was earlier announced by the PTI chairman in the culmination of the Hakiki March that was held. And then, of course, with regards to the kind of measures that have been taken after that, there was a lot of confusion and question marks as to whether or not the PTI chairman is going to go ahead with this as well. So we're also going to be taking a look at what is happening on that front, and considering, of course, that when we talk about this decision, what it means with regards to the dialogue, whether or not it's being held and how that is going to proceed forward with the PTI chairman as well. And then, of course, when we take a look at the situation in terms of the elections and the number of seats on which elections will be held if the dissolution of assemblies is carried forward with, of course, what that means also for the government and for the country. We, of course, do not know the date of the dissolution of assemblies yet, but it seems that the PTI chairman is confident on this particular decision that he says will be announced on December 17th in a rally at Liberty Chalk in Lahore, and he's going to be making sure that at that point he clarifies when exactly he's going to go ahead with this. We're going to see whether or not that actually happens, because much has been talked about this in the past, and then if it does so, what is the strategy moving ahead and the kind of impact it's going to have. The PTI chairman, of course, also talked about other number of things that we will mention later. Our next segment is going to be focusing on the situation on the border with Afghanistan, where we have unfortunately seen that another skirmish has occurred. Previously also we saw the Chaman border being closed, and now at least one person has been killed and 16 others have been injured as the Afghan Taliban again shell the Chaman border area. This is, of course, with a reference to a serious problem that Pakistan has been facing for quite some time in terms of its security, and an issue that the Afghan Taliban regime in Afghanistan need to be cognizant of and need to take care in terms of the way they're going to protect their soil to be used against any other territory, especially Pakistan, and also in terms of border management. We're going to, of course, be talking a little more in detail with regards to what this means, especially in terms of the spike in terrorist activities in Pakistan, the use of Afghan soil by TTP, what needs to be done in terms of international bodies' engagement as well with regards to providing the security to Pakistan, and then what our strategy moving forward will be in terms of having a discussion with the Afghan Taliban authorities also for them to be able to investigate and curtail such attacks. These are the two segments that we're going to be focusing on today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Battafi. And for our first segment with regards to the political situation, we've been joined by Mr. Ahmed Karim Kundi, who's MBA KP PPP, and also Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the debate today. Let me start with you, Mr. Ahmed Karim Saab. When we take a look at this situation coming, of course, in terms of the decision that has been announced, there was earlier a lot of talk as to whether or not the PTI is going to go ahead with it, and it's been quite some time in terms of moving ahead with this particular discussion, whether or not it's going to go through. But we're going to, of course, take a look at that as well, and I believe we're going to get connected to Mr. Ahmed Karim Saab very soon. But Farooq, let me redirect this question to you. Considering that this decision wasn't really something that we had any clarity over as to whether or not they're going to go ahead with, perhaps there isn't much clarity at the moment as well, but the PTI chairman seems quite confident about the fact that he's going to be announcing that when this exactly is going to happen, and that the announcement will be coming on the 17th of December, which is just around the corner. What do you think in terms of the previous announcements that have also come out and the previous claims made by PTI, whether or not this is something that is going to take longer, perhaps longer than the 17th or the 23rd of December, as some people are mentioning, and that when we talk about this particular decision, they are actually going to go through with it, and is not just being used as a strategy to bring the government to the dialogue table.
Right, Sana, I think PTI has one weakness and one superpower. When it comes to its weakness, it is Imran Khan Saab's impulsiveness, right? He makes decisions or announcements on the spur of time then it becomes really difficult to actually get his ducks in a row. So that is what has been happening since he made that announcement. When he pulled this, they call it surprise. I thought it was a nothing burger, but he's pulled the surprise out of his bag
Right.
at the culmination of a long march that was supposed to actually just overthrow the system in the country. It has, PTI also has one edge, and I'm talking about the superpower that I was talking about. They have honed the art of presentation to nearly a science, right? And there's something performative about how these announcements are actually being made. It is like a suspense drama, right? Uh, Imran Khan Sahib has not announced the date of dissolution. He has announced the date on which he is going to announce the
Yes.
date of dissolution,
Yes.
right? And I mean, I restrained myself from actually speaking in Urdu, but what is to be said about our media that laps it up, right? Every 5 minutes they have to create some new kind of drama, theater, and through that they keep on getting ratings and eyeballs. And I think at this moment, while the big news is that Imran Khan Sahib is certainly going to announce something or in the Liberty Chalk, but we still don't know what exactly is going to be the nature, because ducks are not in a row.
Right, absolutely. And of course, this is something that remains to be seen yet again as to whether or not it's going to be carried out. We've been joined now by Mr. Ahmed Kareem Kundi, who's MP AKP PPP, and by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a political analyst. Welcome to the debate. Let me start with you, Mr. Kundi. Considering, of course, that you are also, of course, part of the Provincial Assembly and you have an understanding of what is going on, we've been hearing reports coming in, of course, of the fact that the decision with regards to the dissolution of assemblies is going to be something that is going to be carried out with the PTI leaders both in KP and in Punjab, and that this is going to be done simultaneously whenever it is actually carried out. What do you think the sentiment is like of the provincial members in KP, and with regards to the kind of environment you think exists at the moment, do you think we're proceeding towards any sort of dissolution?
Thanks, Sanna. First of all, inviting me on your program and answer especially on the current political situation. Hopefully, you are hearing me clearly.
Yes, yes, we can.
And first of all, thanks God and thanks to Minister for Finance that some good news in such an economic stress and political stress are coming, that today the oil price has decreased, and it's a good news for the masses. So let me come to
Right.
your question, to your pertinent question. I also agreed with the Farooq Saab that as far as the chairman PTI is concerned, Khan Saab mostly announced number of things, but as far as the execution is concerned or implementation is concerned, I think they have a very bad track record. And analyzing on that track record, I think Chairman PTI has been badly trapped in this scenario. And as far as my colleagues are concerned, which you have asked me, I think I have met number of members of the provincial assembly, and mostly are in the they are mostly they want election on due time, not earlier before due time, as Chairman PTI Imran Khan is announcing. As far as my opinion is concerned, I don't think that they will execute the announcement of the dissolution of assembly. And if
Okay.
they go for the dissolution, and if they go for the dissolution of the assembly, I think there is a no problem in the constitution, or there is a no impediments in the constitution to execute next tenure provincial assembly election in Punjab and KP. I don't think that the pressure which they want to exert on the federal government for the execution of the general election in all the provinces and in the National Assembly, I don't think it will happen like that. If they dissolve the KP Assembly and the Punjab Assembly, I think that the only elections for the provincial assemblies of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab will be happened after this dissolution, nothing else.
All right. We'll talk about that as well because, of course, with regards to the National Assembly, the PTI chairman has also spoken about. But Dr. Niaz, considering that we have seen in the past few days these decisions or announcements coming in from both sides as well, the political setup also has reiterated the fact that they're ready and prepared for any situation which arises in the provinces for elections to be held on any number of seats. And then, of course, the PTI chairman has now announced about this decision being announced on the 17th, and that seems like that they're going ahead with this. Is this a matter of just a game of nerves that is being played on both sides just to see who breaks first? And if so, how far can this possibly be taken?
Well, I mean, given PTI's history of U-turns, anything is possible. But I think from the point of view of government and everybody else to analyst, I think they should start with the assumption, with the worst assumption that PTI will go through with its decisions. Certainly, the noise has increased a bit over the last few days. Then there is the fact that talks don't seem to be going anywhere from what you see in the media. The president has been trying to bring the parties closer to each other, but from what you see in the newspapers today, it doesn't seem to have yielded any results. He's in Lahore for 2-3 days now. Let's see if he's able to convince PTI. But you have to assume that they might go forward with it. But then what shape will it take? 17th is the date on which they will announce the date when they will dissolve. So the first question is, how many days away will that be? Will it be immediate or will it be a few weeks? And then, it's quite possible that, all of this might end up in courts, especially the Punjab Assembly, because, there is a fact that 25 MPAs were de-seated by the Election Commission of Pakistan against rules because the letter to them had come from the head of the party and not the head of the parliamentary group. And the Supreme Court hasn't taken up that case at all compared to the speed with which it has taken up cases filed by the PTI. So it's quite possible that those MPAs might again go to the Supreme Court and file some sort of a petition. So it's all going to be very strange and complicated, and it's very difficult to see how. But of course, a holding of elections, it does happen in India all the time that provincial assembly elections are almost always held not on the same dates as those for the federal government. And you do have 5 or 6 provincial assembly elections being held together. But for Pakistan, it's a new thing, and for the fact that we go for these neutral governments. So now we'll have a situation where the provincial elections will be held with the partisan federal government, and then later on, the federal elections will be held with partisan provincial government. So that will make things a little bit more complicated. But then it will be for the Election Commission of Pakistan to make sure that things stay neutral. So all in all, it's a new phase in Pakistani politics. Let's see how it goes.
Right. Farooq, there's another statement that the PTI chairman made with regards to if they go ahead with this particular decision, is that the elections will be held on about 70% of Pakistan, and that this is something that points towards the fact that the current political setup, because it's not going ahead with general elections, is somehow damaging the country and is evident of what he calls the fact that they are corrupt and all of that. But when we take a look at this particular statement, doesn't that seem something that is being used to be able to malign the current political setup, which it doesn't have a basis in terms of the fact that when we take a look at why this is actually happening, it stems from this decision by the PTI to dissolve the assemblies, and then the way that this is going to proceed is the fact that there will be elections on any number of seats, and if the government is going ahead with it, surely they're not the ones to blame.
Right, Sana, as a rule of thumb, I've been covering Pakistan's politics for 25 years. I've always been able to call the elections in the right direction. Every time I've voted somewhere, they formed the government, right?
Okay.
I'm not bragging, but I'm just stating the truth.
Facts.
Facts, yeah. But let me tell you something about Pakistani people. They don't appreciate when you have an advantage and you throw it away. At this moment in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well as Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has incredible advantage because they can actually form governments. They have governments. They can actually deliver in contrast to the federal government or even Sindh government, and they can actually deliver and then run in the next election on that promise. But what has happened? Why are they so adamant that they have to actually, dissolve the assemblies and then pressure the government to actually hold the election at the center? The answer to that question actually lies in the reason why PTI is sitting out of the federal parliament. And what is that? Imran Khan Sahab, when he was out of power, he thought that there's a possibility of Shah Mahmud Qureshi accidentally becoming the prime minister. Accidentally, right? So he asked his entire party to actually resign because he was jealously guarding his party at the center. And then in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also, he wants to have that kind of control. And in Punjab, he doesn't have that control, that much control. And he is going to actually ask the CM Punjab as well to dissolve. That actually seems inexcusable thing right now. Because if you think that you have better things to deliver, you cannot give up what you have, one in hand, for the sake of two in the bush. And again, one, Imran Khan Sahab needs not to be insecure about his post because his party will evaporate the moment he disappears from the scene. So he is the PTI, right? So why is it that he has to force his party members? Second, another problem that Imran Khan Sahab keeps on displaying, today again it was there as well, these impulsive statements are made because he is not doing his homework. Today I was watching his speech to universities across the country, and that was a great opportunity to mold minds. And I kept on seeing the repeated or oft repeated ideas, and then they were also stretched. And I thought that, come on, you can do much better. I know that for a fact that you can do much better. But because there's no homework, these impulsive statements come, and then entire party has to stake its credibility on that basis.
Absolutely. Mr. Kundi, considering, of course, that when we talk about the kind of preparations that are required, and PTI may, of course, be lacking in that department, but it seems that when we talk about the kind of accountability or consequence or narrative that we would have liked to see from the current political setup, that's perhaps also not there. In terms of the way that things are moving towards the elections of the seats in KP or Punjab, or even if we talk about elections to be held next year, there is, of course, a lot of need to be able to talk to the public as well, which still has been following a lot of what Mr. Imran Khan has been talking about. And so since his ouster, we've seen this entire shift of the narrative and the popularity moving towards the PTI. Why hasn't something been done about that? And then in the wake of the preparations that have earlier been said, is there, considering that this decision actually goes through, is there any move or strategy with regards to also talking to the people and then making sure that your stance also comes across?
Thank you. It's a very good question, Sana. As far as the homework or the preparation or some kind of workout regarding the PTA, I think they have been badly trapped in last 5 6 months. You have seen in all political events, or you may call that political scenario, they have been badly trapped. And actually, the fact is that the PTI as a political party uh, it's a very good luck of PTI in the political history of Pakistan. It is the only party which have been supported by all the institutions, strong institutions of the Pakistan. It's a good luck of PTI, but unluckily they didn't deliver as they were expected. As far as the workout is concerned, they have been, which already mentioned by the chairman PTI oftenly in his statement, that he has been always things are arranged for him as far as the National Assembly members are concerned, as well as the legislation is concerned, that have been arranged by some other peoples or other institutions to the PTI. As far as the alliances are concerned, I think PTI chairman clearly mentioned that some other institutions and peoples arrange for him. So I don't think they have a political acumen to tackle these political scenarios which are going to be held in near future. And as far as my opinion is, the elections are not so far. Only 7 or 8 months are remaining, I think, as the due date are concerned. Our due dates are, if you keep in mind due dates. So I don't think that they are so far. So it's my suggestion as a political worker that they should focus on the National Assembly and they should come back in the National Assembly. And they have two provincial governments. One of the biggest province, they have a government in Punjab, they have a government in KP, and I think that they can move better politically if they keep their National Assembly seats and both of the governments, so they can do better politically in coming elections.
Right, right. And Dr. Niaz, another claim that was made also was with regards to the fact that political stability is extremely important, especially in terms of the kind of economic challenges that Pakistan is facing. And that may be so, of course. We are all in favor of political stability. But in terms of where we stand today and where the PTI seems to be moving, are they really moving in the direction that is going to help or benefit us in the sense that it's going to provide the stability that is needed for economic progress? Or is it in fact disrupting? Is that claim valid?
Well, that is the big issue, whether, new elections will really give us political stability or not. There is the fact that, we are facing the aftermath of the floods. We are facing a huge economic crisis. And the timings are not good to hold an election right now. It would be better, if we could have another 8 to 10 months in which, the economic situation, the flood situation is stabilized a bit, and then, the government goes in for the election. So it's just because of, very narrow partisan interests that, PTI is doing whatever it is doing. And even there, it's not clear whether it will, really benefit it as it is hoping. What happens in the elections, who will win, even, the Punjab elections. KP might be clearer, because, PTI has a strong hand there. But with Punjab, you can never be sure with the, federal government being in place, a neutral government in place in Punjab, what will happen, who will win with, the federal government trying its best to, reduce inflation. And we saw that with the reduction in petrol prices even today. Now let's see how the IMF reacts to that. So all these things, it's, a lot of impulsive action by Imran Khan. I think he was left clueless at the end of the long march because he could certainly not, storm on Islamabad. He just didn't have the numbers and he had to come in with something. So he thought of this. And now let's see, how it may work out for him. It could easily backfire. So all in all, not a good situation.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz Murtaza, Mr. Ahmed Karim Kundi, for joining us and being a part of this discussion. We'll take a short break here and move on to the next segment.
Welcome to Sports Extra. I'm your host, Ahmed Nabil.
Pakistan. I love Pakistan.
Yeah,
Loved my first day in Pakistan. I've been welcomed and the people have been so warm, so hospitable.
People of Pakistan are some of the most welcoming and some of the most passionate, especially for what we do.
Whatever we can possibly get for the youth of Pakistan should be introduced in Pakistan.
Is that the Pakistan flag flying at these events is a massive win for the country.
Shan Masood has evolved a lot.
I genuinely feel that this time, it's anybody's World Cup. You're going to see a lot of upset.
Pakistan hasn't looked back as far as the cricket is concerned.
With three guys that can bowl 90 miles an hour, got a mystery spinner.
And when it's a global sport, it should be played in any country regardless of where it is located.
It cannot get bigger than what we've got tonight.
It's just really amazing to be here.
Pakistan, Zindabad.
Welcome back to the debate. We're going to now be taking a look at what has happened at the Chaman border area, where at least one person has been killed and 16 others have been injured, as the Afghan Taliban have again carried out shelling across the border. The shells have, of course, also done a lot of damage to the people, but also in terms of the kind of challenges that exist, especially with regards to security and the relations with the Afghan Taliban regime in Afghanistan. That has also been damaged, and we have seen that in the past also Pakistan has been trying to secure the border area, provide peace and security within the country as well to its people, and then protect them from the spike in terrorist activities, especially those emanating from the soil in Afghanistan. And yet again we see that the authorities have not been able to provide the kind of investigation and action that is needed to curtail this. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about this and what needs to be done as a way forward. For this, we've been joined by Director Research IPRI, who's Brigadier Retired Mr. Rashid Wali Janjua. Thank you very much, Janjua Sahab, for joining us and being part of the debate. I'll start with you, considering, of course, that when we take a look at the situation, there is much to question about what we need to do with regards to protecting our own people. There is, of course, a lot of conversations in terms of how much facilitation can be provided by the Afghan Taliban authorities in Afghanistan, but in the way that we have seen, especially in the past year or so, the way that these authorities have not been able to meet the international requirements or not been able to protect their soil being used against any other territory in Pakistan. What sort of a re-evaluation is in order in terms of what Pakistan needs to do and the kind of strategy that we need to implement moving forward?
I think the re-evaluation is quite evident in the shape of the government policy. Our Prime Minister in the UN General Assembly has again reiterated the need for international community to re-engage with the Taliban, but at the same time, he did point out that the Afghan soil is being used by terrorist elements for cross-border attacks, and that cannot be allowed. I think the patience is running thin in Pakistan, and for the right reasons, because as we kept discussing in the past as well, that the present interim Afghan government is not in control of the situation, and it's ground commanders at the posts level, they are not amenable to the control and reason, and that is why our response to such cross-border attacks should be proportionate and vigorous, and no pussyfooting on that score, because pusillanimity is not the language that Afghans understand. And this Pak-Afghan spat in the shape of artillery shelling, where our own population is getting affected and a state of emergency has been declared in one district, it is simply not acceptable. And a proportionate and vigorous response from Pakistan side, backed by a very solid diplomatic engagement is the need of the hour.
Right, and Farooq, we have of course been trying to engage towards that direction as well, and Janjua Sahab was talking about a language that the people of Afghanistan or the Taliban do not understand, but we've tried perhaps other languages as well. Which language do they understand, and how do we proceed forward?
Right, Sana, at the start of this program, when you were introducing the topic, you referred to it as a skirmish. The skirmish has to have two elements in it, right? One, equal forces, and then of course that means also that the other side is also responding, right? But that is exactly not the case. The Taliban forces are actually basically shelling the a civilian population, and they are killing those as well, civilians as well. So what exactly, how do you explain that? Usually I would actually refer to Hamlin's razor, which says never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity or incompetence. But this time it doesn't seem to be the latter. There's clear malice in the way they are attacking it. And there seem to be two reasons. One, if you visit Kabul, at the heart of Kabul, there's, the previous government had installed a globe. Now they have actually pasted a map of Afghanistan on it. And they have actually shown certain parts of Pakistan, the bordering parts of Pakistan as part of Afghanistan. So that's why they are actually resisting this erection or, improvement of this security cordon that we have created there, right? And that has been happening for quite some time. Now, I'm not in a braggy mood, but I have to actually once again say that whenever such an incident takes place, I want to actually collect all the discussions we had on Afghanistan in the past 1 year. And also everything that I've written on Afghanistan, I want to actually collect it, make a compendium and present it to all the forces that might be. Was it not exactly what I was warning about? Was it not something that I've repeatedly said, that Afghan Taliban cannot be trusted? And unfortunately, Afghanistan and India both have this habit of externalizing their conflicts so that the domestic attention is actually moved away from their domestic conflicts. Because Afghan Taliban are so divided now, they are trying to externalize it. Now, my concern is that when Ashraf Ghani was there, and when we actually, actually started that fencing project, at that time there was at least some kind of reset button available. Where's the reset button, and what exactly is the solution? Again, I'll ask you, request you to, when you actually go to Brigadier Saab, you actually put this question as well.
Absolutely. Brigadier Janjua Saab, if you'd like to respond to that.
Reset button, you see, both countries are sovereign and reset is always there. But the point is that the other party has to be amenable to reason and the diplomatic norms and the interstate relations. The ground de facto situation in Afghanistan is that it's a security black hole at the moment. There's a government which ostensibly is in control of the entire Afghanistan. That's what they claim. But the ground situation belies their assertion. And we know that there are a lot of factions and there is now internecine conflict also within the interim Afghan government ranks. And they are not in control. And we have discussed it in the past, that this control is not there because of their economic situation. They can't pay well their troops. They can't have those economic and other disciplinary incentives. So,
and Brigadier Sir, that is a very good point. You were talking about various divisions within Afghanistan. My question then is, it kind of reminds me of the US explanation during the time of Ashraf Ghani and Ahmad Karzai as well. But let me ask you very humbly, why is it that every hostile faction of Taliban or Afghan government ends up on our border? Why is it that they are deputed there and then they start attacking? does it not actually show you a policy rather than, inability to control your own ranks?
I agree with you because we need to have a coherent and consistent policy. And on that score, we have been, failing in the past. You can't have one-off and one-on policies wherein one day you start talking to a few people and the next day you start fighting, because the consistency part is very, very important, because the people on our parts of KP, they are also now quite fed up of this continual strife, and the return of the TTP that we witnessed sometime back in Sawat, it caused an uproar, and that was indicative of the sentiment amongst the population. Now that sentiment needs to be factored in while crafting any future policy with Afghanistan. And that policy is very simple. We have a stated policy of non-interference in Afghanistan's affairs. We want friendly engagement. We want maximum facilitation trade-wise and on humanitarian aid front. But what we cannot countenance is the cross-border crossings at will. We cannot countenance organized crime, smuggling, and use of this border as a porous line, which is not respected. And all feelings of irredentism and revanchism, which find expression amongst the various factions, and those are externally funded also. We all know that ordered chaos in Afghanistan suits certain external powers, and those powers are very active. There was 200,000 plus force which was supported for 10 years, and once those elements they vanished, the armaments are still there. So who is picking up those arms and who is funding whom? So it's a veritable witch's brew at the moment in Afghanistan. What we need to do is to strengthen our border controls. We need to have a reassessment of our security policy. We need to redeploy possibly our regular army divisions to plug those security gaps and to ensure that our bordering region is completely safe from these depredations. And
right. By the way, those gaps are increasing now because systematically we have seen that Afghan Taliban or their supported people come and they dismantle parts of kilometers worth of parts of the fence and they just walk away with it. Sana, here's the problem that I was actually, my inability to grasp the presence of a reset button. When the US was here, when the ISAF was here, we at least knew whom to talk to or whom to complain apart from Kabul.
Right.
Now the problem is that there is a truckload of great powers sitting next to it. Russia is also kind of neighbor. Then India also claims that it's far abroad. And then you talk about others like China is there, and then Iran is there. There are so many factors. Now any kind of correction within Kabul seems impossible because you don't have anyone to talk to, and the government of Kabul or Afghanistan is cut off from all these systems all over the world.
Right, right.
So how do you actually reset it?
Right,
this is the problem.
And I was just going to reiterate that as well with Janjua Saab, considering that the cost is ours to pay. We are the ones who are suffering, and we are of course the ones where all of this damage is happening to people and to property and to the kind of threat to security that exists. And of course we can talk about what the Afghan Taliban authorities need to do, what international organizations need to do, what other countries need to do. But if that's not happening, and if we are paying this cost, then what options are left for us to be able to go ahead and protect our own borders without having any sort of reliance on perhaps organizations or authorities that haven't yet delivered?
And Brigadier Saab, earlier you mentioned that both countries are sovereign nations, and I totally get it. But it can't be so that one country keeps on waging war on you, and you just keep on waiting and keep on calling them your brothers. War is also a legitimate part of policy.
I entirely agree with you, and that's what I recommended, that we should plug our security breaches, and we should redeploy our troops, re-evaluate our strategy, and we should strengthen our border and we should not allow any dismantling of this fence, because that fence is a symbol of our emphasis on territorial integrity and sovereignty. And especially it becomes very important once the newly merged districts have taken shape and a new administration and new issues are cropping up there. And we are great proponents of regional security architecture, and to that end a Moscow format is already underway, and Ambassador Sadiq's statement a month ago at Moscow is quite emblematic, wherein he did emphasize the need for engagement, but he did point out that continual strife and support to those elements which use Afghan soil would elicit a very strong reaction from Pakistan side, because we cannot allow our own population to be savaged by these cross-border incursions. And I think we need to be very assertive, and at this point of time there should be coherence and consistency in our approach to ensure that our border region is secure, and our response is very prompt and very vigorous vis-a-vis any such attacks.
Right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, for joining us and being a part of the debate and sharing with us your views. Thank you, Farooq, for being a part of the debate. As always, of course, we hope for peace and security and progress in Pakistan, and we hope that we can move towards the right direction to ensure all of that. That's all we have from the debate. See you tomorrow.